Wayne, I want to get more into the unfolding crisis, still having trouble getting those reactors under control, more gas explosions, more off-gassing unfolding today. Japanese still talking about a Chernobyl option of just burying the reactors. I want to get into Ann Coulter saying radiation's good for you. That's the actual headline. But before we go there, why do you think Obama went with this? To strengthen global governance, to strengthen the corporate state through the UN, to totally cut Congress out of the loop? What's the constellation, the cocktail of reasons that they engaged in this naked act, lying and saying he'd raced to Venezuela, he'd gone to Zimbabwe, saying he'd strafed crowds? Turns out that isn't true. I mean, the point is, I'm not saying Gaddafi's a good guy. It's just that they've been lying about him. And now we have giant Marine Corps and Navy amphibious invasion carriers off the coast. And the resolution, and Hillary's also said this, that if he doesn't accept a humanitarian ground force, that means an armed force, that there will be an invasion. So they pretty much stated the ground invasion right there. We've got Gaddafi handing out over 1 million firearms, preparing for guerrilla warfare.
Right, and I think what this shows is Obama's no different than his predecessor when it comes to these coalitions of the willing. That we saw this play out in Iraq. We saw it play out in Afghanistan. And here we see it playing out again. Look, there were no vetoes in the UN Security Council, but it was to establish a no-fly zone. Now we even have the Arab League that supported no-fly zone saying, wait a minute, we weren't talking about launching cruise missiles and killing civilians, which we have many reports now that many civilians were killed by these NATO strikes on Libya. So they parade out a couple of countries, a few Air Force planes from Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. Big deal. We don't see where's Egypt in this whole operation. So yeah, it's Obama is a neocon. His advisors are neocons. He can call himself a Democrat till the cows come home, but the foreign policy of Obama is no different than the foreign policy of George W. Bush.
What about this precedent? What about this precedent, Wayne? We got limited time here. I hopefully can stay a little bit in the next hour so we can take calls.
Sure.
But what about the precedent being set here where any time there's an uprising in a country, and if the nation crushes them in any way, then there's got to be a UN-ordered invasion, but then there's the hypocrisy of the West crushing and killing demonstrators. This has happened in England at G20 and other events. There's the specter of cops shooting people in the back. There's the specter of the similar things. On the heels of the hypocrisy energized, the illustration energized and highlighted by U.S. Army kill team in Afghanistan posed for photos of murdered civilians, including little bloody dead children, with the, quote, kill teams, as Private Bruckheimer first revealed 8 years ago, that they're ordered to go into villages and kill babies and everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. You look at what's going on in the Middle East, North Africa right now. The president of Algeria brutally put down demonstrations in Algiers, but he's a good friend of Sarkozy in France. He's a good friend of ours. We're not seeing no-fly zones established over Algeria, for example. We now have several Yemeni generals, many of whom were part of this regime in Yemen, corrupt as all get out, now saying, oh, we're with the opposition. That looks to me like the CIA is trying to also co-opt the Yemeni revolution, just like they did the Libyan revolution. And obviously they want President Saleh gone, just like they wanted Gaddafi gone. This is an attempt by the CIA to basically take over the revolutions where they see fit. And in places like Bahrain with those poor people, now they're going into hospitals and shooting people who are being treated in hospitals in Bahrain, blowing up the Pearl Square Monument because it was seen as a sort of a rallying point for the opposition. But Bahrain is hosts a U.S. naval base. We don't see any no-fly zone being put over Bahrain. And where's the no-fly zone over Israel? So they stop attacking defenseless Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. We don't see any no-fly zone there. This is very selective. This is a typical neocon operation.
Well, since when is a no-fly zone British Special Forces backing al-Qaeda rebels?
Well, it was just like Iraq, and under Clinton, no-fly zone over Iraq, and we had all kinds of special forces going in, penetrating the border through the Kurdish no-fly zone area to get Saddam Hussein. This is the same playbook being used all over again.
What's the end game? We'll talk about that straight ahead. Why are they doing this? Then Fukushima. Then your calls. Wayne Madsen. Okay, callers, Wayne's going to stay with us 20 minutes into the next hour. We'll get into Fukushima. We'll take your phone calls. Webster Tarpley, who called all of this with precision 3 years ago, is going to be on with us at the bottom of the next hour. Doctor of History. He's also an economist. Wayne's website's wayne-madsenreport.com. Our websites are infowars.com and prisonplanet.tv. Don't forget, we're also listener-supported when you buy the books, the videos, the T-shirts, the materials at infowars.com. We've now been shipping since last week. Didn't officially come out till today, but we've been shipping since last week. Big Brother, The Orwellian Nightmare Come True, an excellent new book by Mark Dice. We're the sole place to get this powerful book. We have it discounted with some of my films as well at infowars.com. You can also support us with your 15 cents a day, $5.95 a month, prisonplanet.tv memberships. You can see the live video streams, the archive of the video, all my films, expanded extras, exclusive interviews, prisonplanet.tv. Wayne, getting back to Tripoli and getting back to this new UN precedent where the UN gives an order and NATO and America jumps, obviously because it's their puppet they created to have this illusion of international solidarity, but it's the Security Council doing this, not outside nations. The 160 plus that aren't part of the Security Council, but having those ground invasion ships, those amphibious delivery systems off the coast with tens of thousands of troops, having Hillary say and Obama say, you will submit to us, you will allow an international aid force in, which means the military, or else they're basically gearing up for an invasion, a ground invasion. Do you disagree with that?
Well, obviously, that if they've got these troop ships off the coast with Marines, that's a real contingency that they're considering, and it seems like even Secretary of Defense Gates may have been overruled on this, believe that or not. I mean, he's a holdover from the Bush administration, but he was never too keen on this operation. I think he, of all people, know how thin U.S. forces are spread right now. We're in Afghanistan. We're in Iraq. We've got this covert war in Pakistan. We've been involved with Yemen and now Libya. And I would also note that a very interesting interview was given by General Wesley Clark. Now, I'm certainly no big fan of his, especially after what he did to Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia. But he said that after 9/11, he met a colleague in the Pentagon who said, listen, we're going to invade Iraq. He said, what do you mean Iraq? What's going on? He said, well, there's a plan that we're going to go into Iraq, we're going to go into Syria, we're going to go into Libya, and there was a couple other countries, and eventually we're going to go into Iran. So it seems like whoever this guy was who told Clark this was on the money also, and we see Obama just carrying out this same plan that was hatched by the neocons under George W. Bush.
You're absolutely on target again, Wayne. And under this new precedent, if people rebel, then the West invades. That's pointed right at Iran.
Oh, I think Iran is, and I think what's happening now in Bahrain, where you have a majority Shia population. You had the king of Bahrain now try to justify his bloody crackdown on the opposition by saying, well, Iran was involved. Well, he didn't say, he said outside parties. Well, we know who he's talking about. And they had the Saudi troops come across the Causeway Bridge into Bahrain, and just there's videos of them just shooting people at point-blank range, just like that infamous photo of that South Vietnamese police high-ranking officer shooting that suspected Viet Cong in the head. We have videos coming out of Bahrain. Where's the no-fly zone over Bahrain? We don't hear Hillary Clinton talking about that, or Barack Obama. Barack Obama was in Brazil as this military action was launched. Brazil voted against. Well, they basically abstained in the Security Council on this resolution.
All right, Wayne, we got a break. Yep. Stay there. When we come back, we're going to start taking calls. But then later in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to bring up the biggest issue yet. They're saying Gaddafi's probably going to launch terror attacks. Will the globalists launch a false flag to legitimize the war? By focusing on Libya, The Daily Mail's reporting Colonel Gaddafi's son killed in kamikaze pilot attack on Tripoli barracks. But we don't know if any of that's true because so much information is put out as war propaganda by the British, like Gaddafi racing to Venezuela or running to Zimbabwe or being killed. We've heard it all, but it is certainly intensifying. Also, the report talks about rebel fighters finding any Gaddafi supporters, tying their hands and killing them. But that's humanitarian and good. Wayne Madsen is our guest. We're going to get into the big issue after the break before we go to more calls, dealing with USI's terror response by Gaddafi. Perfect to legitimize the war. Perfect to have domestic crackdowns. Perfect to get approval ratings up. We'll talk to Wayne about that coming up. But right now, calls for Wayne Madsen, who joins us via video Skype from D.C. Mark in Oregon, you're on the air.
Hello, Alex and Wayne. I would like to make a very short statement and then get your comments, if you would please give them. We're at a point now where it's not humanly possible to back this evil down. That's my firm opinion, and I believe that even more so because God himself has said, the God of creation has said, that without him we can do nothing. And do you believe that there's any way outside of relying upon God through a sincere repentance for our national...
No, Mark, I agree with you. We've got to change our hearts, and then God will lift us up as vessels to expose evil. That's why the globalists sell us on torture and corruption, because they know it makes us morally weak. I appreciate your call. Comments on that, Wayne Madsen?
Well, I'll tell you, can anything be done? Saturday, I was at an anti-war demonstration at Lafayette Park across from the White House, and this is what I saw. The first time I saw this in Washington, I know under Bush it happened in other locations.
Yeah, they arrested him for not having a permit.
They did, and the cops kettled everyone into a fenced-in area, and if you didn't get out of that area like I did, you were subject to arrest and a $500 fine. Now, Daniel Ellsberg was one of them. Some people knew they were going to be arrested, but they used the mounted police, the mounted horses, kettled everyone into this fenced-in area, and the tourists and there was a couple anti-Gaddafi protesters. All those people, there was 9/11 Truth was there. All those people, if they stayed in the kettled-in area, they risked arrest. So everybody was forced to leave who didn't want to be arrested. I did not see that kind of activity under Bush, but I saw it under Obama. So when it comes to exercising your free speech rights, your freedom of assembly, it does not apply at Lafayette Square. And it crossed my mind. What I don't think they want to have happen on Pennsylvania Avenue and Lafayette Park is a Tahrir Square, and this was a clear indication. If we ever tried to have a Tahrir Square in Washington in front of the White House, it would be put down. It would be put down as fast as anything.
Well, Wayne,
and,
that was my next point, is that no protest zones. You can't protest in the park in land of the free, home of the brave. But then Egypt allowed the protest to go on, and that was evil and horrible because they didn't hand the government over to the mob because the West wanted it. I mean, this is an illustration of the tyrants that run our country.
Oh, absolutely. And, I remember under Bush we had probably between 250 and 300,000 anti-war demonstrators at several of these.
Wayne, I got to stop you. Your Skype is unintelligible. We're going to try to reconnect, or we may just go to phone with Wayne Madsen. It's great technology to be able to have him with us here on prisonplanet.tv and streaming to all the radio stations. But we're going to fiddle with that during the break, or maybe go audio only over his Skype, try to fix that breakup. And then we'll continue with Tim, Ben, JB, Ronnie, and others that are patiently holding. We'll also get more on Wayne's take on the whole Fukushima unfolding cover-up, now out of sight, out of mind. This is